What's up? Welcome to Journey into Self. I'm your host, Sarah. Today, I want to speak on just living the game of life. The topic came to me as I was in contemplation, considering, what has occurred, over the last few weeks. One of the things that I do, as we've talked about on the calls a number of times, is observing life, learning to putting into practice being an observation of life, while we're living life. When I do so, I observe certain patterns, recurring patterns, recurring conversations or themes of conversations that I have with people. Greetings. So, in these observations that I've had in terms of the recurring conversations and themes of the conversations that I've had with people, it has been revealed that a number of people are struggling with being able to apply spiritual principles of life, to be able to integrate the spiritual principles in their lives. Often when I come across people who have studied spirituality over a number of years, it sometimes is becomes like it's like going to school, but not feeling that what you're learning in school is applicable to life. We're just going through the exercise of learning these things, and the only purpose ends up being just to be able to express that knowledge. So we'll take a test, a physical test, like in a class, but it doesn't come to us that what we learned has any type of practical application. What also happens is that though we absorb the information, we've become so accustomed to living our life in a certain way, it becomes difficult for us to escape that pattern. So unconsciously, we just find ourselves repeating the same patterns, going down the same paths, and doing the same things the same way. So people encounter difficulty during the few times that we are conscious to apply the principles, because at the stage that we're in right now, we don't apply them unconsciously. We're at the early stage of competence. As many of us have learned, there are essentially four stages of competence. There's unconscious incompetence, not knowing what we don't know. We're not even aware of certain things. Then we go through the process of becoming aware of things. We we are taught, certain things. We're taught principles. We're taught to tie our shoes. And so we become consciously incompetent because while we have learned to do things, we haven't developed a level of competence with it. We don't just do it, by rote. We make mistakes when we're trying to apply the knowledge. And we may have to continue to ask for assistance on the way to getting there. But with continued practice, then we become a little bit more competent to where we still have to think about it, but we can do it. So we become consciously competent. We're thinking about the things that we know. We're applying the things that we know, but it still hasn't become part of us. It's still something that we have to consciously engage in. And then finally, once we have developed the consistency in our practice, then we get to a point where we become unconsciously competent. We don't have to think about what we're doing. We just do it naturally. It just becomes part of our routine, right? And so we've talked about, for instance, getting up and meditating in the morning, in the early morning at dawn. But we have to think about that. Some of us may have to set our alarm, or what for myself, I don't need an alarm. I'll wake up, but then, I'll face the challenge of actually getting out of bed, because, as I've explained at our previous discussions, that when we are on the spiritual path, we meet opposition from our lower self. So, we're trying to reunite our lower self to our higher self. We're trying to basically establish ourselves in our higher self and let that guide our life. But we have to go through a transitional period because the lower self is not interested in relinquishing its control over us. So it fights. So though we may aspire to get up in the morning and do our meditation, we'll face opposition from ego, who tells us, hey, you don't really need to get up this early. Why don't you just go back to sleep? You can get up later, sleep for 10 more minutes. And then, 10 minutes ends up becoming an hour. Continue to rationalize why you don't have to get up then. And then next thing you know, you haven't done it. Okay. Or, we'll fight it and then, we'll get up and do it. But in doing so, we are consciously making that decision to do it. But if we do not allow ourselves to get discouraged by the battle, by the obstacles that are placed in front of us by ego, then we get to a point where we become unconsciously competent, that we just get up. There's no opposition, or we've become so proficient at being able to detach from thought that we're not affected by it. We don't even give place to the lower self. As the Bible says, neither give place to the devil. And the devil represents is symbolic of the lower self, the lower nature. So, if we don't give it place, then, or give it energy, then it doesn't have any effect upon us. But we have to realize that we're not going to just automatically, as we decide that we are going to embark on our spiritual journey, that it's going to come easy. It's going to come without opposition. So it's important for us to be patient, to persevere, to realize that even as we climb higher on the ladder towards our spiritual ascension, that it will become even more and more difficult. But as it becomes more difficult, it becomes more easy at the same time, because we have become stronger. As I mentioned before, whatever opposition or challenge that we face, we're given it with the knowledge that we have the capacity to overcome it. So be not discouraged when the voice of ego may convince us to do something or to not do something. Just continue to persevere, fight the good fight, and as we do so, we will gain more and more strength, just as it is that when we go to the gym and we're being trained, we have to face stronger opposition in the form of, higher level of weights or, more strenuous activity in order to get us stronger, because we have become stronger through the course of our training. And so the resistance increases for us in order for us to become even stronger. So it's important that we realize that. The other point is that what often occurs is that we just get into kind of this intellectual game, with the spiritual principles, where we get to the point where we can recite them, we know them, we can quote them from the book, we can impress our friends with our knowledge, but again, it just becomes abstract knowledge until we begin the process of putting it into practice. And and again, because of the dynamics that I just expressed, with the opposition, with us not having developed unconscious competence, we haven't developed a level of consistency yet. And as we learned in when I was in the Aquarian Spiritual Center through the Black Gnostic Studies, is consistency is manifestation. That we're not going to see results until we become consistent. But again, it's important for us to have patience, because some often will lose patience thinking that the principles don't work, though we've tried it, we've applied them, and we haven't seen results. But we haven't been consistent with it yet. We're going to the gym 2 days sometimes. Another time we'll go once. We made a commitment to go 5 times a week, but we're doing it 1 or 2 times a week, but expecting the same results as if we've been going 5 times a week, like we agreed to. And so we get mad at the process, rather than getting mad at ourselves, and then we end up giving up because we haven't seen the tangible results of it yet. And often it could be just that maybe we've even done it just enough to where the results were just about to sprout in us. There's a story about someone, uh, digging for this lost gold in their backyard, and they had been digging for some time, looking for it, and but they gave up because it was taking longer than they thought it should take, and it turned out that they were just 3 feet away from it at the time that they gave up. 3 feet from gold. Was a story. Okay, so we don't always know where we are in the process. And we may be closer to results than we think, but it's important for us to maintain our persistence. But I brought this particular topic up because in my conversations and interactions with people over the last couple of weeks, I've had a number of people, express this frustration to me. Some, I just had a brother who has been a devout spiritual person through all his life, and not religious, as the case may be, but they were into spirituality, and a lot of people, will eschew religion, in the name of, spirituality. But he even, was a spiritual person, and he gave up and got frustrated because he wasn't, seeing things, tangibly, with his life. But again, I think part of it had to do with the fact that it was more, we had the knowledge, we studied it, but in terms of facing the challenges that we have in life that provides us with the opportunity to put them into practice, that we just ended up defaulting, back to our old ways of dealing with things, and haven't gotten to the point where we begin to synthesize the things that we've learned in the life. And so, one of the things that comes up from that is that too often we look at spirituality and physical life as if they are separate and apart from each other. And that ends up being the problem, for many of us, is that, we see spirituality over here, we see life over here, and we approach it that way. But the point of the spiritual teachings is for us to integrate the spiritual principles into life. It's not that we leave physical life and go into spirituality over here, and then we do the spirituality over the weekend or Sunday or whatever, and then we go back to reality, go back to life, right? And then approach life the same way as we always did. No, we integrate it into everything that we do in life. We integrate it into our approach with our relationships. We integrate it into our interactions with the people that we encounter in our jobs. We integrate it into dealing with traffic or whatever things that causes stress. Uh, we integrate it into our business practices. We integrate it into all parts of our life. So it's not seeing things as separate. Even a yogi who makes it a point to go into the Himalayas and meditate in a cave, they're going to end up having to go through some type of test to evaluate how effective their spiritual practices were, because it has to be relative to something. You have to have something to measure it against, and and that's part of the process of life. I was reading from the Bhagavad Gita narrative that Paramahansa Yogananda had put together, his commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, and he makes the point that I think my brother Atmu is on, so I want to welcome the brother to this. But he also made this point during our last meeting that the evil, as it were, is necessary as a contrast to good, and so it is the purpose of life for us to be able to get to the point to where we begin to make the right choices, to make the choices that are going to move us to our higher self, but in order for us to be able to discern which choice is the right choice, there has to be a bad choice, as it were, for us to compare it to, right? And so, it's life is a divine drama, So I saw someone, it was interesting, that how everything just unfolds. I saw someone, pose a question on Facebook a few days ago, and he was like, why is there so much evil in the world, right? Why why did God create us to have free will? Isn't that like a cop out? And isn't free will presents a choice for people to engage in evil? And I it was interesting that question would be posed, because if one were just to contemplate that, the answer would be readily apparent. I mean, it's just like, if we may think that we might want a partner in our relationship who will acquiesce to every desire that we want and just be perfect and do whatever it is that we say or we think that they should do. But we would get bored with that really quick if that were to happen, or if we were to go and watch a movie, and the movie, everything and all the movie were good and everything was happy in every scene. I mean, we would walk out from that movie within 15 minutes, because there's nothing in it to make it interesting. There's no challenge. If you don't have typically a movie is going to have someone who's good, a hero, and a villain, and we end up rooting for the hero, to overcome the villain, and who's doing. But if there's no evil, no opposition, there's no entertainment value, and so so life is is a game. It's a divine play being played out, created for us to by the Creator to see, is to give us the opportunity to be able to find our way back home, right? So as I was meditating, sometime last week, it came to me that it's like life is like a big giant maze that we have been on into, and the maze has a number of different pathways, and within each pathway, there are rooms that have different experiences. Some could be positive experiences, some could be negative experiences, some could be choices that will experiences that will be more uplifting for us spiritually, or they may be something that will be more appeasing to the physical senses, right? And those things will get us more attached. So with every choice, we're either moving closer to the goal or farther away from it. So we make the choice that's more aligned with physical pleasure, then that path is going to move us closer to where we came from, the exit, than to being able to get back home, right? So, conversely, the more spiritually type of experience that we choose to will move us closer to the exit, move us closer to spirit, right? But all of them will give us an education, through the contrasting experiences. We will experience that if we choose the path that is more aligned with the sensory pleasure, we will, with discernment, be able to notice the difference when we make the choice to go into something that is more spiritually aligned, And so as we observe that contrast, then we're empowered to be able to make a better decision. Okay. But sometimes what happens is, we might go into one of those rooms and just get so caught up in it that we forget what we were in the maze for. We forget what our objective was. We forget that the objective of the experience of the maze is to get out of it. Now there's things that we can do to enjoy the experience, and some of the rooms that we might go into, might be enjoyable, and that's okay. For us to have experience and enjoy it, and that's why those rooms were placed there. But there's also a higher purpose to all of it, and and it's important for us to not lose sight of the fact that the ultimate objective is for us to reach the goal of attaining to the entrance or the exit, and the exit is attaining to our spiritual higher consciousness, attaining to enlightenment. So with that, let me stop and open it up to any questions or comments or insights that you might have.
Brother Sarah, how you doing?
Hey, Brother Atmu, fantastic.
Welcome. Good. Yeah. Very interesting. Very enlightening. Some of the points that you made, or most of them, all of them, were key. Especially the choices that that a person can make, and their potential and obstacles that may be put in their path. Our lives are full of obstacles, As a matter of fact, when you take your first breath and begin to live your life as a child and adult, we will face obstacles. Those obstacles are put there in place that will, uh, they're there to uh, assist us in turning inward, to take a second look inside. Uh, the answers are within. Once we turn inside, then the obstacles will begin to move away. The choices that we make are very important, like you stated. And once you decide on something, the outcomes are pretty much generated because energy follows thought. If you decide a yea or nay, the outcomes are decided for the yeas and the nays. And as we continue to make choices, the outcomes are also put in place. We do have free will, we do, and but the choices that we make are confined within. I'm sorry, the choices that we make are within the confines of our life's past, our astrological chart. We have free will within those confines. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Oh, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point that, we have choices. They are, within the content of the, as you pointed out, the astrological chart. Now I'll have you elaborate on what you mean by that, because we know that at the time of our birth, there are certain energies that are extant that influence the course of our lives, and and also the effect from the karma that we have brought forth into this incarnation from the prior lives is also, I would say, ingrained in the in our charts as well, which ends up affecting what we experience in this current incarnation. So I'll just have you, since and this is Brother Atmu, who is a friend of mine, for a long time. But going back to when I met him in African Minds United, who was giving a profound lecture on astrology and the how the Bible relates to astrology. It being a anthropomorphic representation of what has occurred in the stars. So just deep stuff that I had absolutely no clue about, but what I was really interested in knowing. And so brother Amu is very knowledgeable brother, and one of the things that he has expertise in is astrology. So would you just go ahead and elaborate on how the energies that are extant from the influence of the stars and planets, the sun, in relation to our time of birth, imbibe certain energies that sets forth the confines of the choices that we have during our current incarnation.
So once we're born, the heavens are configured in a certain way. For example, myself, I'm an Aries, so born March 28th. My rising sign is Capricorn. So on the eastern horizon, there was the constellation Capricorn. I took my first breath at 7:25 a.m. So from that point, mine and others who were born at that particular time and space, because these are considered your coordinates, your birth time, birthplace, and location. Those are your coordinates, and they're energetic coordinates because this is where spirit has incarnated into the physical plane at a particular time, place, and location. And so the heavens is really a snapshot of your life. That will be your life's pattern. Your astrological chart is basically a series of patterns, energetic patterns that, for the most part, most of us will pretty much just live it out verbatim without any knowledge of astrology, based on the choices that we make. And in terms of karma, the past lives, we do bring those energies into the current life, and they do influence us, and they also influence our urges and also our talents and experiences that we lived out in past lives, and also the decisions that we make for the future. So as we live our lives, we will make, I don't like to say mistakes, but we will have obstacles that are put before us to challenge us so that we can grow internally. They're meant for internal growth, spiritual growth. You can find careers, love life, fitness, employment, career, employment, the type of mother you have, relationships between mothers, fathers, friends, love relationships. You can find all types, all experiences are there in your birth chart. So your life is basically this chart, and this chart is a puzzle. Sorry, he mentioned earlier about a maze. Well, the birth chart is similar. It's a puzzle, and there is a theme, because he also stated earlier that this is a cosmic drama being played out on planet Earth. There is a theme to this play. Each one of us has a theme to our life that is also in your chart. It's called the golden thread, and once we discover what that theme is, with its solar drama, because there's a solar drama being played out with characters, and we are the main character as the sun and your sun sign. Once we figure out exactly what that is, then we can begin to see how and where we are presently, where we were several years ago, and why we are currently in the situation or place or space that we are now. We can kind of see how we got here. We can see the choices that we made in the past that got us here in the present. And therefore, knowing the past, you can make better choices, because as I mentioned that you can make better choices once you begin to get on the path. You can make better choices that will lead you to where you should be in the future. So all of these aspects are in your natal chart, in your birth chart. In addition to that, every birthday that we have what is called a solar return chart. So every birthday, 5, 6, 7 years old, you have a solar return chart for that birthday year. Each of those charts is a piece of the puzzle of your natal chart. Each solar return chart that occurs every year will fulfill a piece of your life's puzzle. I can go on. I don't want to. This is Saraj show. I can go on, but it's very interesting, and I've learned so much, and there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn about astrology and life, and how it is really how it helps me to try to be a better person and look at others as spiritual beings, because we're all one, and our natal charts do intersect. As we make relationships, our astrological charts intersect with one another. There's a chart for planet Earth also, for those who didn't know. So,
well, let me just make one slight correction to what Brother Ottman said. It's not my call. It's Spirit's call. And I'm a vessel, as is Brother Ottman. Right. So, let's see. What was I going to ask? There was a number of points that you made that I thought we could elaborate on. All of it's very profound. One of the things that came to me was that as we're talking about being able to look back at the past and identify uh, where choices led us, whether we thought that they were positive or negative experiences, that we look back at them with the intent to be able to discern and see how those choices led us to where we are right now. And if they led us to a place that we were not happy with, that we understand how we got there. So the value of being able to do so is an education in learning what not to do. How
Yeah.
we got into a certain place. So now it's important for us to be able to have that perspective when we look at the past, rather than falling into the inclination to beat ourselves up, wallow in self-pity over the fact that we got ourselves into this particular situation and just, be sad about the choices, but rather to be able to look back and have an understanding of how it is that we got there, so that when we go forward, we will know how we got into the negative situation and we can avoid it. So it's just like, if you watch sports, the coach after the game, if the team lost the game, they don't gather. He doesn't gather the coaching staff into a meeting and gather around to cry and lament over the loss. Instead, they will review the tape to identify the weaknesses in their game plan to determine how they lost, or how they made mistakes that ended up leading to the loss, and then use that as a means to be able to devise a new game plan for the game going forward. Once that has been done, then the game film is discarded and there's no more talk about that game, right? And so it all has a purpose. Everything is, when we are able to learn how to detach and observe life as we experience life, as we talked about, from the process of applying that ability that we learned from the process of meditation, then we learn that all experience that we have is with the objective of teaching us. That life in and of itself is a teacher, a profound
That's
teacher.
correct.
And, it need not even be, for one who has developed that ability to be able to detach and observe. One does not need to even necessarily read any spiritual books,
Yeah.
Then, you can just, observe and, imbibe the lessons through the experience of, and the lessons of life. One thing I did want to ask you, Brother Atmu, you made the point that the astrology presents for us what choices we have within the confines of our chart. And one thing that I'm aware of is that take for instance, even when we incarnate into a new life, or even before we've incarnated into this one, we were presented with choices as to how we were going to come into this experience and who we would come with. We even choose our parents, but that choice is is within certain confines based upon uh, the karma that we have developed from our past lives, the past experiences, and how we've dealt with those, and that those will manifest themselves in the timing of our birth and the opportunities that we have upon our birth. So,
a few things.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, a few things. Well, I can just give my personal experiences. Quite interesting. When we had our meeting the other week, I think I gave an example with my wife. One of them that was just so profound. That was one of them. Some others. Some of the people that I've come across and have met, and these meetings are not by chance. These people come back to you to assist you in some way. But the point that I want to make is that when you see those individuals, when you see these souls right before you, speaking from my own personal experience, it could be different for others, but I get this resonant vibration from each of these individuals. It's not as if I knew you from or met you. Well, let me rephrase. It is as if I knew you before. I don't know your name. I've never seen your face before, but there's a spiritual resonance, and I've had that so many times. Whether they're African American, whether they're white, it really doesn't matter what your nationality is. I've worked with a couple of ladies who were into Wicca, and both of them, I had the same sense, the same resonance. And one of them in particular, Sarah, was actually working down the street from my house when we were giving a full moon meditations. She lived doors down the street from my house, and while we were having our full moon, she was having her own spiritual workshops, and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
So I met her at the Sakikai bookstore for the first time, sometime after one of our meditations that we had. I met her there. We were just chatting, and I told her what I did, and she told me what she did, and I told her what area I lived in, and she told me hers, and she said, "You know what? I live down the street from you." And I'm like, "Well, I have my full moons once a month," and she says, she has her. It's not a full moon meditation, but it's something similar once a month. And I was like floored, all right. But that first encounter. There was a resonance there. Like I know you. It's like I know my mom, I know Sarah, I know my brother. It was like that. There are other individuals that DC was another one. There are others who I've had the experiences of sharing their resonant frequency, and it's just I don't know. It's hard to put it in words.
I know exactly what you mean. As you were talking, I was thinking of the number of experiences that I've had, where, I would just encounter someone and we wouldn't even have to speak. Often we wouldn't speak. We just look at each other and like kind of just nod our heads, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are individuals who we know, and I won't use the tense because time is an illusion.
Right.
We're alive. We're conscious. We are connected. We are one. God is. We are. We are an extension of the God force of God. And we are here to manifest the will of God. We are extensions of God. We are the consciousness of God. And we are here as gods and goddesses, but we're one. therefore we will come in contact with uh, those other souls here on earth via the Spirit from God. We will connect again, and so that this is profound. We will have more, and so interestingly, you brought up, Sarah, about choosing the parents. I was just thinking about that yesterday. How we are able to choose parents, or I should say, souls to incarnate through, and how that's profound. I've even tried to go even beyond that into my past life. I almost passed out, but I just wanted to see how far I could go back, and that physical consciousness is not there because I'm incarnated into another body, and therefore the brain, mechanism has some blockage there. But just the fact that we picked the parents who allowed us to share experiences with them again on the physical plane, and what have you.
Indeed, and so we have some experiences with people recurrently, right? But their relation to us may change, as we
Correct.
have different incarnations.
Uh-huh.
And to some extent, we might be able to even, sense those things. I mean, I can just, I know that, for instance, my son, has been with me, more than just this particular lifetime. And I know that our relationship was different than father and son, as it is right now. Our relationship is, we're really connected and close. And, I think, he and I were more like either friends or brothers, probably in the previous, incarnation.
Right.
And, similarly, I know that, I had a different relationship with, with my parents, in prior incarnations, and, the situation might be been in reverse.
Right, yeah.
Just kind of just looking back at how things,
Right.
unfolded. But yeah.
And we'll be together again.
Indeed.
We will be together again. Yeah.
Indeed. And even with my spiritual teacher, Amma, has told us that, we've been with her before, so, and so everyone is a vibration. Everything in the universe is vibration, and we put out our own vibrations, and we attract to us, based upon our vibration. So we will invariably end up with people who have similar vibrations and are on a similar path to us. And then we'll encounter people who will provide some necessary challenges for us.
That's correct.
Which are important for us to be able to give that contrast, as we talked about before, in order for us to, be able to see ourselves better, and, to be able to identify, the things that we still need to overcome in order for us to be able to attain to the goal of reconnecting with our higher self. So I know we have Latifah, my sister, on. You have any questions or comments of me or Brother Atmu?
Well, first of all, welcome, Atmu. I met you a long time ago, and welcome. Nice to hear your voice.
Okay.
I think I bump into you maybe every 5 or 6 years on different events.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a little about. You mentioned that when you meet someone, do you feel like, even though you haven't met, you're saying that you have a feeling that you have this inner knowing, right?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you give that credence to? You give it to that because you met in a previous life, or because you just intuitively feel that you're on the same wavelength?
I would say all the above. At least for me, all of the individuals I have had that encounter with, it is as if, and I'll use the tense, it is as if we have been together before, working in a spiritual nature. That's been my personal experience. And it's like Sarwar said, and I can quite identify, we would look at each other. Here's another example. I was teaching some courses at the African Culture Center in Long Beach. I was teaching one course on Tuesdays, and I was substituting for Brother Dadisi Sanyika when he was away. I would substitute for him on his Thursday class on spirituality and metaphysics. It was that particular night, that Thursday night, where I was introduced to a woman. She's psychic, and well, I didn't know that at the time, but when I was introduced to her for the first time, like I said, there's just no words, but it was literally as if we worked before. I know you. I don't know your name. I don't recognize your face, but the energetic resonance, the synchronicity, it was as if we were together. Not like we were friends, we were together. We were a unit doing something. And this something I sensed was something dealing with the spirituality of life. And I sensed in the near past, she is older than I am, which doesn't matter. It's just that she incarnated here before I did. The age is not a factor. It's the fact that there was a resonance with our vibrations.
Okay,
if that helps.
Yeah, it does. It's just that I have felt what you both have described with people. It's just that I didn't really, put a label on it as far as it being because of an incarnation. I just thought that I just had a kinship with someone that was spiritual. I didn't really analyze it further than that.
Mm-hmm. It could be different for different individuals. It could be, different people. Other people may have different senses, but I'm just describing mine, and mine are pretty loud. The volume is high, if you will. Yeah. So, and there are other senses, perceptions. For example, what we call deja vu. Like, I've done this before. Those are other. I'm sorry, Sarah?
Or you've been somewhere before.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Those are other experiences or senses or perceptions that will lead one to know that something has occurred before, something is going to happen, or I have done this in a different time, place, or space. That one is kind of hard to attack, because the DC will call that a signature, like I've done this before, or
yeah.
Yeah.
Something just I guess a revelation came to me in terms of this, just this past Sunday. Uh, I bought this book at our spiritual center, and I bought it knowing that I had already bought that book, but I bought it anyway. And the book was written by Swami named Swami Ramakrishnananda Puri. This particular Swami, I've developed a pretty strong kinship with. He's one of the Swamis associated with Amma, and so when I see him, we talk. I can talk to him. He remembers me. We have, I can ask him questions, and I enjoy his books, and so I've I look at him as my personal Swami, and so I bought the book and I started I opened it up and I started reading it, and I was reading from the introduction where he was recounting his story and how he ended up coming to the place where he is now, on the spiritual path and being with Amma. And I had read this before, but it didn't even register with me. But now, my occupation in the in the mundane world, I'm a bank examiner. So I'm reading the first paragraph of the book, and he says, I was working at a bank.
Okay.
Before
yeah.
and I was like, wow, that's deep. I never really even thought about that before. I didn't, and yeah. So that's just one of the I guess synchronicities that you'll observe in life. One of the things I pointed out when I first started the call before you guys called in was just how it is that I've come to a place where I observe, recurring patterns in life. I pay attention to recurring patterns. I pay attention to when I'm having the same conversations with different people, and and I realize that it's not by chance that it happens. And so when those things occur, I contemplate them and we'll get some deeper meaning from it, from that contemplation, and so those things are, Brother Amu said, that DC calls them signatures, and we should pay attention to those things because again, there are lessons for us in each experience. There's no, as George Clinton says in the song "Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts," there's no chance, coincidence, or accident in the world ruled by law and divine order. So there's a purpose to everything that we experience, and so it's just for us to be able to discern it, or as Brother Amu said, put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yep, interesting.
Anything else, Atiba?
No, pretty much. I got it. Getting wrapping my head around the incarnation, reincarnation, idea. I've known quite a lot about it, but I'm just not. I mean, I heard a lot about it, but I'm just not as familiar with it as you guys are.
Okay, well, we'll go into that in greater detail in another call. So we'll get there. All right. So we've come to the end of the hour. So we'll go ahead and close out, but we're going to have all these recordings. Each of these are recorded, and they'll be made available on the website. This one I recorded as a video, so the video recording will be available on the website.
That's great. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Brother Atmu, there's many things that we can
do. Yeah, that's out there. God, you said that. I got a bunch of stuff I can really, well, we could discuss that. So, wow. Man, that's outstanding.
Yes. Okay, so, with that, I'll thank you for joining in, and I thank you for your questions and comments, and we always encourage them because it is Spirit who is bringing forth the answers, but in order for the answers to be given, the question must be asked. So we will always encourage the asking of questions because the Spirit is bringing the answer. So with that, we'll close out the call, and please. If you feel like there's anybody that you know who will benefit, refer them to the call. And, so we'll see you next time here on Journey into Self. And with that, I'll bid you with the words of peace. Hotep.
Thank you.